Welcome to Roleplay Cafe. It's Dell here yet again, and this is a recap reflections of last night's game in the Chronicles of Joth, which I will entitle Tripping Beavers. All right, we pick up John and I, as John's playing Bomrick the dwarf, and I'm playing my druid Sufanusaphone, which it just goes by Sue for short. All right. So when we last left them, they had trekked originally in search of Hootie and the Dwarfish and why they hadn't made it to Blackfish Bay. They run across the wax and it had encroached across the river. Um, so, and Sue had worried about this too because the more north they went, the quieter it had gotten. Earlier, he had noticed. So this wax is driving the creatures, animals, and whatnot away, which is not good for his business. So he gets fire under him and needs to go back to his grove to alert, to have a council meeting, see what they need to do about this encroaching wax. Bomrick comes along for the ride. I see that in session 35 when they slather themselves down with a dragon scat to keep away from the wolves because the wolves backed away whenever they approached the mine or the cave rather. And so he did manage to evade them. Eight hungry, salivating wolves. So we made it to the grove, and that's where we pick up in this session. We're obviously very rank. So when last we left off, we were, to speak with the grove elder, we had to cleanse ourselves in the waterfall. We set about doing that, and the grove elder comes up and he's watching it. Bomrick inquires of him, is this something that he normally does? Does he like watching people cleanse themselves? And he goes, well, it's just, are you ashamed of your body? So there's a little bit of a dialogue going back and forth like that. And Bomrick, thinks a little bit queer, so to speak. And then, but, we get clean and ready and go see the elder, which is Mufasa Fusaphone. Obviously spelled phonetically amongst all the grove here. Which I guess we're looking at extent that at least it's partway pronounceable between all the members of the grove, all the druids. Some druids I hear speak in animal clicks or whistles or howls or whatnot as far as transferring their name. Everyone asked, but this grove doesn't do that, and I can't recall. Todd has a wicked sweet name for the grove and in the council there, but I can't recall it right off. But anyway, I bow low in my greeting, and I shake myself like a leaf in so much wind, and debris, which is basically pollen and seeds that I had picked up on my journeys, fall upon the land. So in part, what I'm doing is collecting and then replanting in this grove, right? To keep seed-bearing plants alive and whatnot and thriving in case we need to replant elsewhere. That's part of what Sufanusaphone does. He's a little bit of a Johnny Appleseed, if you're familiar with that lore. Nevertheless, he bows deep. Bomber gives him a curt little bow. He's still a little bit a little bit taken aback by what he's witnessing here and how we're, very eccentric druids, a coven of druids here, or clan at least. I do give a long-winded tale of my adventures since I had left the grove and back in my travels, and then I excitedly reached the point to where I'd witnessed the wax, which made me beeline it back to the grove to report it, and uh, you know, hurriedly request that we gather all the druids in the council of druids and other druids nearby, and see what we need to do about this problem. He concurs, and later on they send out a call, and the druids get there, but they're sitting around smoking their pipe, and there's, I believe, a purplish type haze that covers the area as we're smoking. Anyway, we have to roll for poison to be affected by it. I'm not. Bomrick fails miserably, and so he starts to witness very much hallucinogenic type experience. So he's seeing mushroom men. He sees a mountain lion come into the convention that they're having, the gathering. This states he's from the northern crag that divides this land in Hexmore, which not too much has been shown or told about Hexmore. Later on, Sue, my character, will receive some information or remember some information. They after while this is going on, Sue doesn't really understand what is going on because I failed a second attempt at trying to understand. Basically, I ended up eating the wrong side of the mushroom, and I got really small and crawled through the hairs of the lion's mane on the lion, and all the voices were slow and drawn out, so I couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on. I was just enjoying myself, right? And that after that, we they state that they're going to have to consider what to do with the wax, but in the meantime, they have the secondary problem of these woodcutters that they had tried to at least live in peace with, along the river, but they were cutting the land to such a degree that they were beginning to fear that it was going to infringe upon the grove here. So we were to be tasked in the meantime, while they was trying to figure out what to do with the wax, to go there and speak with them and see if they would go to the other side of the bank, which is in the Hexmore territory, right? So it might take a little bit of convincing to do. Anyway, we agree, and then we set off to do that. Now, when Sue hears to do that, friends with woodcutters, those things are cutting down the woods. He cannot. His facade drops. So you can read his face very easily around the council, and I guess his brothers in the Druid council understand that. But when he hears, you can just read it on his face whenever they say woodcutters. He just look of disgust, and then he goes back to a blankness and a smile and whatnot. Bomrick asked for some of the pipe weed that they were smoking, and said yes, it will be a long trip. Sue brightens up at that, so they do give him some, and we're able to do that. He passes us 2 pipe, which Sue interlaces into the end of his beard. He will pick it up and smoke it and then let it dangle back and drop. And he's doing this, not doing it so much, but he still has the residual effect of that night when we set off. So there's really no time keeping for him or distance keeping. He don't even know what day it is. By the time that we end up arriving at this area where these woodcutters are working. Now, the closer I get, I see that there are less trees. So what I'm doing is I'm taking, and they had proffered us some nuts and berries that we had partaken of at the little council. Bomrick asked, don't we have any meat or whatever? And Of course, Sue does not hide his revulsion at that thought, and he lives off of twigs and berries and nuts and whatnot that he keeps stowed away in his beard for safekeeping for travels, and he reloads on that before we leave. So, but as we get there to this woodcutter's logging area, that the woods are thinned out. There's a lot cut down. Sue starts replanting in the area, and the closer we get in, the more agitated Sue becomes, as akin to like housework is never done. It's just more and more. So he's getting a little bit more agitated. He's planting more, and Bomrick sees this as an opportunity to kind of lead Sue away to keep him busy while he goes and talks with the woodcutters. Well, he goes and does that. Sue is planning behind him. He speaks with the woodcutters, asks where their foreman is, which he takes the woodcutter there takes him to the man in charge and talks with him, and it's starting to drop a little nighttime, little. The sun's dropping lower, so the man's looking a little bit like a little bit more aware and looking around more so. Bomrick inquires what's going on, and he said, well, we've been harried and tormented by this flying beast. Describes it, and from the description, Bomrick recognizes through an intelligence check that it's a manicore that flies down from Exmoor, the mountains over there, and attacks. He also says that the little risen island there was there's a beast on there, basically through another intelligence check, a white ape, a four-armed ape that lives on that little island, and he refers again to the lady in the lake. So there's a lot going on in this one little area. Bomrick suggests that since there's so much going on, why don't they move their operation across the river? He's trying to see an opportunity for that. But that's the moment when he said, well, we'll talk about it, but we got to get in our cabin for safety right now. And do you two want to stay? Well, they end up going there. Sue's still out there planting, more harried as ever, planting these seeds, trying to repopulate the treeland that's been devastated. Okay. Earlier, Bomrick had taken me out there and showed that they had murdered all these trees, right? And that's when Sue has a little vision. When he says that, it triggers blood seeping up around the stumps, and then the screams he can hear coming from the stumps or whatever. So that was what kept him agitated and going even more so than he normally was. So he was trying to quell those screams and pitch water out of the lake onto the, to re-water, and also to probably sate those screams and bring them down a little bit low. So he was busy tripping, as it were. So they go back in the place and they talk a little bit more, and then Bomrick realizes that Sue's still out there. He goes up there and gets him by his elbow and brings him in. When they shut the door, Sue sees in front of him a host of beavers that are standing around. And then he sees Bomrick talking with them. And he gets frustrated that Bomrick, how can you rationalize with they're nothing but beavers? Now, Bomrick doesn't know what a beaver is. He's failed that intelligence checks. Ironically enough, Sue does. So they both don't want to admit that they don't really know. They're kind of coy about, Sue doesn't know what a manicore is whenever that Bomrick came out there and tried to pull him in later to the cabin, saying the dangers of the creature and whatnot. And Sue's not getting it. What are you talking about? So he doesn't really want to say it and give away the fact that he's not knowledgeable in that area. So he's playing up and he plays along and he goes inside the cabin with them. And that's when he sees around all the beavers that's been cutting these woods down in this area. Of course, Bomrick, like I said, has no clue what a beaver is, but he doesn't want to say that either. So there's a little nice back and forth play between them, not admitting what they don't know. And that kind of lends to them conceding, especially in Sue's case, when Bomrick suggests that, well, I should say that right before then, Sue grabs these beavers by the teeth, grabbing the woodcutters by the lapels, and he's still smoking his pipe and is still fuming inside the cabin and breathing on them as he's saying that they must leave. You destroy the land. We need to replenish it. So in other words, it was Sue's attempt at pitching that the land need to lay fallow, regrow again. Y'all guys can head off and come back. That's something that adds to them thinking about it a little bit. But Sue, in the morning when we wake up, we all pass out. Sue's out there when they wake up, and he's already stripped nude, standing in the lake, waist deep. And he sees this frothing foam of a wave approaching that looked like billowing horse heads trotting toward him. Whole horses, as a matter of fact. And he throws out his arms thinking that he's witnessing some illusion. Ready to accept what is coming to him. And it just dies down and just washes about his waist, the trailing bubbles, and he doesn't really understand. A little bit disappointed that he didn't get a full effect. So he turns around, comes back, reaffastens his loincloth, and he is about to take more of the pipe weed and put in his pipe as he refastens it to his beard, and Bomrick comes up to him and suggests that he doesn't do that as a long trip, which Sue says, you're right. It's a long trip because, I need to save some of this. But Bomrick wants him a little bit more lucid in the moment. So he concurs. Now, Bomrick saw this wave come up too, this frothing wave, and then diminished right before it hit Sue and trailed around him. So he actually saw it. He's a little bit more sober of mind. But nevertheless, he suggests that they go up and check the waterfalls. There's two main waterfalls, one larger that splits and comes over the rocky ledge, and another smaller one. We go up to the right and circle around, and Bomrick doesn't see really the need for them to go in that area, but he plays along with it. He has concepts of maybe this beast that you're saying that's coming down the Manticore, if they're scared of it, if we can't, first he issues that would Bomrick know any way to divert the river, to flood the area that they're in and make them leave? Or perhaps that they could set one of their buildings alight, aflame, to attract this beast that they're so scared of, and then they would be run out of the area. And that would solve the problem. Anyway, Bomrick doesn't want to play that game. He said, we can be more civil than that, to which Sue rolls his eyes. They go up to the right. Sue follows him along on the trail. Maybe, as he's chewing on his thoughts of how this could go, he figures, we can walk a little while. We can do this. So they go up to the area. They cross the river, which is about 7 foot. It's a fallen tree, which Sue remarks that, another fallen tree. So they cross it, but Bomrick falls in and floats down the river a little piece. I say river, it's about 7 foot across, about 5 foot deep, before he grabs a hold of the edge and pulls himself up. Sue says that he's all wet. Gets up. So there's a little agitation from Sue, but they make their way around to the rocky ledge north of the lake. And there is another waterfall. And there's a ledge that runs onto it. This waterfall is fairly powerful and goes right into it's not really a lake, but it's an area where the two rivers meet, pool up. So it's a little bit of a wider area, about, I believe he said 450 foot across or so. The island's probably about 100 to 150 foot, you know, a little bit more on the western, more on the, the western shore than it is near to us. The island where the four-armed uh, ape resides. But nevertheless, we're going into this ledge. Bomrick has rope and spikes he wants to nail in. Now, when he says we should perhaps jump off, swim over, and climb up. Well, Sue's understanding that he should take the rope. Like Bomrick is hinting that he take the rope, dive in, swim across, climb up, and then just walk across the ledge. Well, he's already about had his feel of dilly-dallying around because he's proffered that they just go underneath the waterfall. Even though the waterfall's coming down, there's a small ledge. They might get battered by some water, but they can still make it across. Bomrick wants to drop down and swim across. If he's afraid of getting knocked off, I'll just jump, thanks Sue. So he jumps off. He takes 1 point of damage with a little belly flop as he goes into the bottom of the water. He comes up in the frothy, wake of this waterfall at the base of it, and is clearing his eyes, and the steam and mist is rolling. And then he sees on a rock protruding out next to him, he sees a female figure laying there. And at first, a blissful little half smile splits his, little grin splits his face as he stares at her. And she's intent, and then she says, she's looking at him intently, almost with a fiery intention, but he hasn't seen that right off. And she said, "Are you come to despoil my lake as well, or my water as well?" And then Sue has a little look of confusion on him. Earlier, Bomrick had to, as Sue dove off unexpectedly and quickly, had to brace himself and make sure that the rope he was holding in of the rope didn't accidentally pull him down too, which he fastened himself. He steadied himself and didn't follow suit. But back to Sue. Sue seeing this, and he gets this peculiar, curious, like, what do you mean? Am I here to despoil your world? He's looking at himself, but I'm clean. I'm like, what's going on? And her eyes flash, and she dissipates water just over the rock itself and comes down. And then this huge water elemental springs up from the water and then repeats the same question. Are you here to despoil my lake, my water? And that's where we left it off at. So it's a little bit of a predicament that we don't know how we're going to get off out of it, but in a little bit of a cliffhanger, no pun intended. We were on a cliff. I know Bomrick's still hanging on to that cliff. But we will pick up in session 37. I like this session, a little bit of a reflections here. It was just the three of us. It was kept light. We were able to smile and laugh a little bit. There was a situation. It's still a situation. We know that Joth can be really treacherous. And, whenever you face something, and Todd will roll randomly to see if anything occurs, which he was doing it during this time. And I've had plenty of characters bite the dust, as well as everybody else who's played in the world. So we've had this cast of characters that we've played as and interacted with each other as, a whole stable of them. So it's a very treacherous, lethal world to be in. But there's enough humor and a little bit of gonzo aspect to it, and enough magic and creatures that it definitely scratches that itch for me personally to experience those. It's a little bit of whimsy. It really contrasts the fact of how dangerous it is and how a character can lose himself. But there's definitely enough whimsy in there to make you smile, and enough peculiar things, and even some of them uh, hauntingly peculiar. And the way the world's set up as far as politically in the different areas. Yeah, it's not Candyland. That's for dang sure. So anyway, that was it. That was session 36, Trippin' Beavers, and we will pick up with Josh in a week or two, most possibly two. We'll see where we're going with that. Looks like we got a game of Dark Age of Man on Saturday, around 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until then, we'll see you there. Take care. Bye-bye.